Right, so my name's Gareth Tucker. I'm the acting executive head, but I'm also the director of the Cambridge program here at Somerset College. So welcome to all our local parents and students who may be on this meet, but also welcome to all our international parents who have joined us to find out a little bit more information about what Somerset College can do in terms of the Cambridge program. So I'm going to take you through a few things. As I mentioned earlier, there will be time for questions, but if you do have a burning question in the middle of the presentation, please do feel free to stop and ask. The big thing about the Cambridge program and the classes are that they are interactive and that pupils or students are encouraged to ask questions. So I'm going to do the same thing with the parents at this point. Right, so let's get started. Okay, right, so... So for those of you who don't know where we are, Somerset College was founded in 1997. We turned 25 last year. It's an independent co-educational school. We're in the winelands of the Western Cape. And if you look here at the little graphic on the right-hand side, you'll see roughly where we are in South Africa. That's more for our international students. I would like to think that our local students do know where we are. Right, so for those of you who don't know, the college offers IEB schooling. We're actually an IEB school running from grade 000 through to matric, so in other words, from age 4 to age 18. But we also offer the Cambridge A-level. And this Cambridge A-level runs parallel to our grade 11 and grade 12, which I'll show you now. Right, boarding is also available for both boys and girls in both the IEB, in the senior school from grade 8 to grade 12, but also particularly in the Cambridge program. So any students coming to us from abroad will have a place to stay in our boarding house. Right, so let's quickly talk about this Cambridge Assessment International Education. Okay, so the Cambridge program, as I stated, offers an international curriculum. Okay, there are two programs. There's the Cambridge English, as they call it, which is the Cambridge program, which is run in England. And then there's Cambridge International, which is offered to countries outside of England all around the world. So we are part of the Cambridge International. We are a Cambridge International school in that regard, and we offer the AS and A-level qualifications. I'll tell you a little bit more about what AS and A-level means, but just to let you know that the Cambridge International A-level is accepted in most countries around the world. Also, just note, we are not doing the EdXL A-level curriculum. We're doing the Cambridge International. That means that our curriculum is set by Cambridge University. The exams are set by Cambridge University, and all the exams are marked by Cambridge University. So when our students write exams, we send all those papers back to Cambridge. They mark them and they send us the results. Right. The EdXL A-level curriculum is offered by Pearson International. We do not offer that. All right. The Cambridge pathway, just to give you an idea of how big Cambridge actually is, it actually starts all the way from age 3. And we don't offer it from age 3. What I'm talking to you about today is just the AS and A-level program, which is offered at the last 2 years of schooling. But just to let you know that there's some information regarding Cambridge. Point number 6 there, recognition. Our qualifications are recognized by universities worldwide, including over 850 universities in the US. I think they've made that statement because there was a time where the American universities didn't recognize some of the Cambridge programs, but they do now. And you can read a little bit about their preparation. The training for teachers, so all our teachers are trained and they know what they're doing in the Cambridge program. And you can see there it says they're learners from 10,000 schools in over 160 countries. So when we write our exams, we're writing the same exam that those students in those 160 countries are writing at that time. Okay, the exam schedule is set by Cambridge. So when we get that exam timetable, we don't have any say in moving those exams around. Just to say that, right? Okay, so before we get started, let's just talk a little bit about what we've done in the past. These are our Cambridge 2022 results. There's just some of the students who did particularly well. There's Kyra Naidu, who was the top student in the country, top A-level student in the country. The previous year, he was also the top AS student in the country. And then you can see those students, Tegan, Anya, Melissa, Marvin, William, and Matt. It's interesting to note that Anya and Melissa have both been accepted into Imperial University in the UK, which is arguably the second best university. A lot of people say Cambridge and Oxford, but seeing that you can only apply to either Cambridge or Oxford, they sort of both ranked first. Right. Marvin and William McDonald are overseas. Tegan is currently at Stellenbosch University. Kyra's at UCT. And Matt is at Stellenbosch, but applying to the US as we speak. So our students do tend to stay here in South Africa to a degree, but they also have an international qualification, which allows them to go to international universities. But if you have a look at their results, you'll see that there's a star next to some of the A's. That A star means that they've achieved over 90% for that subject. So you can see the kind of results that you need to be getting if you are going to go overseas with the Cambridge result. Remember that students who are doing Cambridge here, you're doing that same Cambridge course, you're writing the same exams as any student overseas is writing. So you will be compared to students who have done the same exams. So doing Cambridge is not enough. You still have to do well. Right, then every year we get Cambridge Outstanding Learner Awards. These are students who have achieved top in the world or top in the country. And if you have a look, there's a long list of all our students who have done this over the last few years since we've started. And I've just put a few of the highlights on the right-hand side, slightly bigger so people can see. But you'll see we've had a couple of top in the world. Dario was top in the world in maths. He was also top in the world. He was the top A-level student in the world in 2016. Daniel's top in the world in English. We've got Jock, who was one of 22 students worldwide to achieve 5 A stars in 2018. So to do 5 A levels is pretty impressive, but to get 5 A stars is even better. Rachel was top in the world in mathematics. Mika was top in country in economics. Kyra has been top in country. And Josh Bloom was also top in country. So for the last 2 years, Somerset College has had the top A-level student. In other words, the national ducks, for want of a better word, in A-level in South Africa. Right, so our results sort of speak for themselves. And it points to a well-trained staff, or a very experienced staff, but also a very passionate staff, as well as students who come in with the right idea and where they want to go. Right, so let's talk to you about the Cambridge pathway as it exists here at Somerset College. So for those who can't see how the Cambridge program ties into what we do, we are an IB school, as I mentioned originally. We run grade 8, 9, and 10, ages 14, 15, 16 roughly. And then students would normally carry on with grade 11 and grade 12 and write their final matric IEB examinations at the end of grade 12. We've introduced the Cambridge program in 2015 in such a way that the AS level, which stands for Advanced Subsidiary, runs parallel to grade 11. And the A level runs parallel to grade 12. And into that AS level, we would accept students who have done a local grade 10 or an IGCSE or GCSE. The I stands for international. So it's either the 16-year-old qualification that a student who has done Cambridge schooling prior to coming here would have done, the general certificate of secondary education or something along those lines. Okay. Right, so we would then accept 16-year-old students into the AS level, run it parallel to grade 11, and then the A level runs parallel to grade 12. So our AS students are treated as grade 11 students, and our A level students are treated as grade 12 students. Right. Just showing you a little bit more about this. What we do is we offer what is known as a staged route. In the UK, if you just were in a UK school doing the Cambridge program there, or any of the UK things, you would write your A level, you would complete your A level over 2 years. So A stands for advanced, so you would do your advanced level over 2 years. And the way this works is that you would have done your GCSEs, and in the UK, a GCSE is a school leaving certificate. So students may leave school at the end of completing their GCSEs at age 16. And they would then go off to go do various trades, or they'd go work, but those students who want to go to university have to go do the advanced level. They would then do the advanced level for 2 years. Normally what they would do is choose 3 subjects, possibly 4, depending on which universities they are wishing to apply to. But they would then do a 2-year A-level, and they would run all 3 or all 4 subjects for the full 2 years and write all the exams at the end of the 2-year period. But because we're doing the international version of the Cambridge program, we do it as a staged route, and I'll explain why now. So that staged route means that we split it up into 2 years, the AS year, the advanced subsidiary, as I mentioned, and then what is more affectionately known as the A2, which is the second year of the advanced level. The advanced level then consists of having done both those years. So you will see that I have a red block at the end of the grade 11 AS year. That's when we write our examinations. So we would start the year in January. We teach all the way through. We write exams in the 4th term in October, November. So there's no teaching in the 4th term. And the exams that the students write there in the 4th term would then add to the exams they write at the end of the 2nd year. And those 2 results give you your A-level qualification. So for example, in mathematics, students who do mathematics, to get an A-level mathematics qualification, you need to write 4 exams. So we would write 2 of the exams at the end of the 1st year and 2 exams at the end of the 2nd year. And all 4 of those results are added together to give you an A-level qualification. Now, why I'm stressing this is because it means that what the exams we write at the end of grade 11 are just as important as the exams we write at the end of what is essentially grade 12, the A2 year. Okay, those exams count exactly half of the final result, each of them. So if a student is looking to get an A star, like the students you saw earlier, you need to be getting 90% in the 1st year, and again 90% in the 2nd year. Okay, so a student who gets 80% at the end of the AS year has to essentially get 100% at the end of the A2 year if they want to get a 90 overall. So you can see the kind of work that those students were doing to achieve those results in their A levels all the way along. So it is not the same as an IEB or a grade 12 in South Africa, where students may take a little bit of a breather in grade 11 and try and do a big push in grade 12. Okay, you can't do that because the results count for both the AS and the A2 exactly 50% of your final A-level qualification. Also, just while we're talking about the exams, there is no CAS mark. There's no continuous assessment mark. There's no year mark. So students who do Cambridge, everything relies on your final exam result. There's no year mark. So what we do with tests, we do write tests and assessments throughout the year. That's for us to monitor students and their progress. But those test results don't count at all towards any final result. This makes it very difficult for students who have any form of exam anxiety. Okay, so if there's students who stress during exams, who find exams difficult, this is probably not the way to go. Right. Okay, so let's talk about the Cambridge classroom. So the Cambridge classroom, how it works to compare to IB is, well, I'm going to talk about the IB relationship now, but let's just talk about Cambridge first. It says the students have to demonstrate understanding and core knowledge of a subject as well as think critically. Well, we like to do that in both IB and Cambridge, so that's understandable. They will be asked to construct arguments and evaluate evidence. Well, obviously, okay, students will work independently and learn to collaborate with one another to reach a successful outcome. Okay, let's talk a little bit about that one. What happens in Cambridge, because you're only doing 5 subjects at AS level and sometimes 4, okay, what it means is that in an 8-lesson timetable, we often have lessons where some Cambridge students may be free. In other words, they're not going to be in a class. If they're not in a class, there's nobody going to be looking after them. They don't have a teacher or anybody looking after them. They need to show the responsibility to go work in the library and go do their research and go do any sort of studying outside of the class time. So this is the work independently part that we're talking about there. If a student is not able to work independently, and I don't mean self-study, this means that if you go into a class and the teacher's talking about something, there's a topic you're talking about, you're covering in class, the student must be prepared to go work outside of class again to make sure they consolidate and they read up more on that topic that has been covered. Okay, if they are not prepared to do that, they're really going to struggle. And the reason is that the Cambridge curriculum goes a lot deeper into various topics. So there's a lot more for the students to know and understand. And the exams questions do not simply just focus on one little part at a time. So in other words, one question can cover, in my subject of physics, one question can cover about 6 different chapters. So students have to be able to work independently. They need to do a lot of reading outside of class, and they need to have the responsibility to do that. And during that time, there is nobody watching them. So they have to have the responsibility to do that on their own. During those times as well, they can also form study groups, and that's where the learn to collaborate comes into play, because a lot of those Cambridge students tend to feed off of each other, and they form study groups and they talk to each other and they help each other get to their goals. Right, it says that they'll be encouraged to develop an international outlook, become more confident global citizens, and the program aims at developing students who are confident, responsible, reflective, innovative, and engaged. That stands to reason. That's what the IAB is trying to do as well. Right. So it says the IAB in Cambridge. So as I've mentioned, the aims of the IAB in Somerset College are very similar to that of the CAIE. The CAIE is Cambridge Assessment International Education. This is why the Cambridge program has fitted into the college ethos so well. So this is why in 2015 we chose to bring the Cambridge program on board, because it actually ties in with what we were trying to do in IB anyway. As I mentioned there, the difference is the topics are explored at a deeper level and thereby requiring more insight from students. Okay, the volume of work is greater, which requires more dedication and greater responsibility, as I've mentioned. The next point there says the Cambridge program is an accelerated program compared to the IAB. Okay, and what that means is that that first year, the AS year, which we run parallel to grade 11, in South Africa is the equivalent to a grade 12. In other words, students joining the AS program, having completed grade 10, should by the end of the AS year, the first year, have done the equivalent to a grade 12. In other words, they've essentially done 2 years in one. And this is what makes it an accelerated program. Okay. For that reason, the students who choose to do the Cambridge program should be achieving the best possible results at the moment in grade 10, because if you are struggling in any way, it is only going to be compounded once you hit the Cambridge program, because there the teachers are going to work very, very quickly. And there's no time to be filling up gaps and trying to lay a foundation. The foundation needs to be laid prior to joining the Cambridge program. Okay, it says that the Cambridge program is not a soft option. There are students who believe that they can cut down their number of subjects and therefore it's going to be easier. It is not. It is simply not easier. Some students choose to do Cambridge because they believe then they don't have to do LO, or they can drop Afrikaans after a while. While those things may be true, that does not make the Cambridge program easier. And as it states there, students who choose to follow this route will be expected to work harder, more independently, and be more focused and engaged than they have been before. Okay, right. SA, South African University Access. A lot of people ask about this. The Cambridge qualification is accepted by South African universities. There are some, as there are in Matric, there are various rules that we need to follow. And and students who are wishing to do the Cambridge program, I'll talk you through all this. But just to let you know very quickly, we need to get a thing called the Matriculation Exemption Certificate, which is issued by USAF. And this is once you've got your results, you need to apply to University of South Africa to get this. And then once you've got this matriculation certificate or exemption certificate, you can go to a South African university. Okay. Students who have completed their A-levels are viewed favorably by South African universities, because remember, the A-level is now beyond matric. It's essentially, to a degree in some subjects, first-year university. So students who have done their A-levels are viewed favorably by South African universities. And in fact, there are South African universities like Wits, Stellenbosch, and UCT, and Pretoria, who actively seek out A-level students because they do so well. They finish their degrees in the required length of time, and they're generally at the top of the Dean's Merit List. But that's having completed A-levels, not AS. Okay, remember that AS is equivalent to grade 12. You can go to university with an AS, and many international schools do the AS, but then they do it over 18 months or 2 years, which, quite frankly, I find quite tedious. Right, so students who have completed the A-levels definitely have an advantage going to South African universities. And then to receive your matriculation exemption, the student's required to offer 2 languages, English plus one other one. Doesn't have to be Afrikaans. Okay, so it can be French or German or something like that. Most of my local students do Afrikaans, but for international students, that's not always necessary. Right, just talking about the matriculation exemption, this is still talking about local universities. I'm only talking about South African universities at this point. You'll see there are 3 ways in which students can get matric exemption. The first one is using AS level. They need to do 4 subjects at AS level plus 1 subject at IGCSE. Generally, the one at IGCSE that we do is Afrikaans. If a student is not going to do an IGCSE subject, then they need to do 5 AS level subjects. Okay, international students coming to us having done their IGCSEs have already covered that, then they don't need to worry about that 5th subject. Right, if you don't achieve your matriculation exemption in the first year, you can do it in 2 different ways in the second year, by doing either 3 subjects at A level or 2 subjects as A level shown over there. On the right hand side of the screen, you'll see in the blue blocks, those are the subjects that we offer in our Cambridge program, and you can see how they work within the groups. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. So you'll see English language is in group 1. We don't do English language and literature. We do English language because English language allows students who do that in AS level to take it to the A level. Students who do English language and literature, that's generally an AS only, and it makes going to A level English very, very difficult. Right, then there's Afrikaans, but you'll see that students can also do French or German or any of those other subjects down the bottom there. isiXhosa for local students is not a Cambridge subject at the moment. Okay. Then in group 3, we offer biology, chemistry, mathematics, and physics. You'll see the subjects are doubled up in various groups. We also offer art and design, economics, geography, history, and music, and computer science, and further mathematics. Further mathematics is offered only in the A-level year. And we could chat a little bit about further mathematics later, but it's not something that anybody in AS is going to be doing straight away. Right, then you'll see literature in English. It says they're ungrouped but recognized subjects. So literature we do offer to students because it is seen as a facilitating subject for international study. So we do offer that even though it is not recognized by South African universities. So a student doing literature in English, that will not count as one of the 4 subjects at AS level to get matriculation exemption. Those other subjects which are offered there, we don't offer them. Cambridge does, but we don't. We only offer literature in English from that group, and that's because it is a facilitating subject for international study, as mentioned, even though our universities do not recognize it. Right, just to give you an idea of how the universities do view the AS and the A level, you'll see the 3 columns there, SANSC, that stands for South African National Senior Certificate. That's essentially South African grade 12. Okay, this is from the Stellenbosch University website, and you'll see that A student who achieves 80 to 100%, they get an 80% by Stellenbosch University, is regarded as an A. But at AS level, an A is regarded as the equivalent to 90, a B 75, a C 65. So in other words, the symbols in AS are essentially the same as the symbols in grade 12. So you'll see that an A is just the mid-range between 80 and 100. A B is the middle of the range between 70 and 79, and so on and so forth. So that is why the AS is regarded as being the equivalent to grade 12. At A level, however, you'll see a student who achieves a C at A level is seen by Stellenbosch University as having achieved 80% for their entry requirements. So this is why A level does help you for local universities. So if you do your A level and you get a C for the subject, that is seen by our universities as the equivalent to an A. Okay, and then as you go higher up, it gets even better. Right, so even an E at A level is regarded as being a C, or 60% in matric. Right, so doing your A level certainly does help you with university entry. Okay, whereas doing an AS, while it is seen as the equivalent to grade 12, it does not do anything for you in terms of university entry any more than what just doing a matric would do. Right. Okay, so there, as I mentioned just now, those are the subjects that we offer here in Somerset College. Just to talk about the English literature again, it is there, but it is not recognized by our university. So a student who chooses English literature still has to do 4 other subjects to try and make sure they get their matriculation exemption. Okay. Mathematics, you'll see, consists of different components. So in the first year, in AS year, all our students will do pure maths and statistics. So those are 2 components which are added together to give them 1 single mark. So pure maths and statistics, they're roughly 2/3, 1/3 of the final result. And then in the second year, they've got a choice of doing a second course of pure and a second course of stats, or they can choose mechanics. So they could do pure and mechanics or pure and stats in the second year. What that means is students who want to go into a financial degree, like actuarial or CA or anything in business studies, tends to do the pure maths and the stats in both years. Students who are looking to go do engineering tend to pick up mechanics in the second year. Right. While we're talking about this, I do mention it later on, but I'll say it again now, is that for South African universities, a student wishing to go study a BSc of any kind, anything that involves a BSc, Bachelor of Science, must offer both physics and chemistry in their AS year. So anybody who wants to go do anything in a BSc, whether it be engineering, even medicine, if you want to do a BSc computer science, if you want to go do data science, anything, pure maths, computer science through a BSc route, anything involving a BSc, you have to offer both physics and chemistry, at least in the AS year. That's for South African universities. Right. Okay, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about chemistry later on, and we'll get to that. Right, so here's the subject requirements. So to achieve a full A-level qualification with matriculation exemption, local students will be required to take at least 5 subjects in the AS year, with a minimum of 4 subjects on AS and 1 subject for IGCSE. Now, what we do here at Somerset College for our internal grade 10 students is we allow them to write the IGCSE Afrikaans exam at the end of grade 10. What this does is it allows them to take either just 4 subjects on AS level or still 5 subjects at AS, which then gives them more scope for choice going into the second year. So that basically means we cover the IGCSE requirement at the end of grade 10. Right. And then we normally take 3 subjects at A level in the second year. You can take 4, and as mentioned, I have had students taking 5, but 3 is generally what is required to go to the UK. Unless you want to go to Cambridge or Oxford or something along those lines, then 4 A levels is normally required. There again, I mentioned that for our local universities, both AS Physics and AS Chemistry is required to study any degree involving a BSc. And then the fourth point there, regarding AS Chemistry. The AS Chemistry is probably the most difficult course in the Cambridge curriculum in AS year. Okay. And the reason for this is that it is the one course which requires more than what our students would have done in grade 10. So for this reason, we do have a bridging course, which consists of approximately 12 sessions, which we will run at the end of the grade 10 year. And we will do that online bridging course. So students will have a tutor for that online course. And there's going to be a cost for doing that at the end of this year. And we'll send more information regarding this bridging course once students have started signing up. But just if you are looking to do Cambridge next year and chemistry is going to be one of your subjects that you need to do, then please remember that you will have to attend this bridging course if you want to be successful in chemistry the following year. Right. But as I say, I will give more information around that once students start signing up and choosing their subjects. Right. Okay, let's talk about the Cambridge student. What kind of student chooses the Cambridge program? First of all, they've got to be hardworking. They have to take responsibility for their progress. Okay, we do expect more responsibility from our Cambridge students because of the nature of the course and the way it works. Point number 3, this is engages in class. A student who follows the Cambridge program has to engage fully in class. You cannot sit in the back of the classroom and expect the knowledge just to soak into you. It does not work. Okay, by engaging in class, I mean the student needs to come in prepared, ready to work, listening, engaging, asking questions. The only way you're going to get to ask questions is if they are working outside of class and doing their research. The student needs to be able to go do research. So for example, I teach physics in AS. If I introduce something like Kirchhoff's rules in my class, which is something around electric circuits, I expect my students that afternoon to go read up on Kirchhoff's rules. So the next day when they come in, they have more background than what we spoke about in class. They've probably got a deeper understanding, but they may also have developed some questions. And they can come and they can ask those questions the next day. If they do not do that reading and research outside of class, they will come into the class the next day having very, very little understanding of what we're doing. And because of the speed at which we have to work, that then becomes a problem. So any student who's considering doing the Cambridge program, you have to work outside of class and you have to be engaged while you're in class. Right? You need to be focused on your goals. You have to be able to deal with pressure. There is pressure. It is not easy. Okay, you have to be able to collaborate with your friends and your classmates, and you need to be prepared to study and revise during holidays. The September holiday, for example, is not a holiday. The exams start in the beginning of October, which is generally around the beginning of our 4th term. So the September holidays is not a holiday period. So families who have got students doing Cambridge, please do not arrange overseas trips or camping trips or any form of holiday during the September holiday at the end of the 3rd term. It is not a holiday. It is a time to revise and a time to prepare for exams. Right. This is obviously if you are looking to be successful in the Cambridge program. Derek, I see you have a question. No? Derek, you put your hand up. You still there? No? Fine. Okay. Right. Okay, so why would anybody want to follow the Cambridge program? I know I'm making it sound very difficult, and that's because it is. Okay. I'm not a second-hand car dealer. I'm not trying to sell anybody on this call. I'm not trying to sell the Cambridge program to you. The Cambridge program is another offering. Okay. It does give you an international qualification, which makes it easier to attend some universities overseas if that's what you're looking for. But remember that the IEB is also accepted overseas. Okay, there are some universities that don't accept IB, granted. Okay, but there are a lot of universities overseas which quite happily accept the IB, and sometimes it's easier to get into those universities having done an IB than it is to have done the Cambridge program. Okay, so please don't think that if you want to go to an international university, you have to do Cambridge. Right, this is another option, but it's not the only option, and you really need to think hard about it. So why follow the Cambridge program? If you've completed your IGCSE or equivalent, then it makes sense to continue the Cambridge system, because then you would be used to the teaching, you'd be used to the way it's taught, and it just makes perfect sense to continue, which is a good thing to do. I know there's a lot of countries in sub-Saharan Africa that offer Cambridge, and a lot of students come having done the IGCSE, and it's a seamless move into following our AS and A-level Cambridge program. If you're a grade 10 student, then this is going to be a big decision. Okay, and the reason why it's a big decision is, as I've just mentioned, you can continue with IAB to grade 12, continue with what you used to, keep doing exactly as you are doing, keep working on the subjects you're working on, and do well in grade 12 and get to where you want to be. Okay, right. So who then chooses this Cambridge program? It's because theoretically, well, not theoretically, but what you should have is you should have a specific goal in mind. You should know why you want to do this. And I insist that the student chooses this, not the parents. Okay, because the student is the one who's going to have to do the work. So it is not for the parents to choose this route or the subjects followed. Okay, it must be because the student has thought about this. They've got a goal in their mind and they are focused on achieving that goal. That goal should not be to spend the next 2 years with my friends or following a teacher. Okay, right. It says there, Cambridge students must be prepared to work independently outside the classroom. I've mentioned this, and I've mentioned this a lot because it is important. It says this does not mean self-study. It means that students cannot simply walk out of a class and not address the subject matter again until the next class. So you need to use other sources. They need to look at the text, internet, textbooks, whatever they have to research or read up on the topics covered before the next class. If they don't, they simply fall behind. And if they fall behind due to the speed at which we have to work in these classes, you'll find that they're just going to struggle more and more. Right? Cambridge students need to be engaged. They need to offer opinions, discuss their theories, and argue with their peers. Sitting at the back of the class, expecting the knowledge and understanding to soak in does not work. I'm sure I've mentioned this before. These students will simply fall behind and struggle. Okay, students who can prioritize, deal with pressure, take responsibility for studies, and remain focused have the best chance of succeeding. Sorry, I'm reading this. I know you guys can read it too, but this is important. Okay, remember, as I said before as well, because there's no CAS mark, there's no continuous assessment mark, no year marks, everything goes down to the exams in October, November. If you don't do well in those exams in October, November, you can rewrite them. Okay, that is an option, but remember that is your mark. So if you struggle with any form of anxiety around exams, the pressure becomes huge. Okay, and students need to be able to deal with that pressure. Right, we don't offer all sorts of accommodations in Cambridge. There are accommodations. You can get extra time, you can get those things. We've got to jump through a few hoops to get there, but it does happen. But we don't have separate venues, and we don't have, readers and scribes and things like that. So any student who has concessions like that, this is probably not the program for you. Okay, right. Why you should not follow the Cambridge program. Right, so somebody choosing the Cambridge program, the Cambridge route, is still required to achieve good results to enter tertiary study. It's not enough to simply say you've done Cambridge and now you can go to university. Okay, you still have to get the results. Remember, doing Cambridge, especially if you're looking for international study, doing Cambridge means that you are being measured with people who have written the same exams overseas. So they've also done Cambridge. So it's not enough to say you've simply done Cambridge. That's not the silver bullet that gets you in everywhere. Okay, you still have to get the results. It is an accelerated program where a student completes the equivalent of 2 years in one. Any student who believes it's easy will not succeed. You can't come in here thinking it's easy. Okay, you will remember me mentioning in the beginning about Dario Trinchero, who came first in the world in mathematics. His very first mathematics test, he obtained something like 60%. for his first maths test in AS. That boy had never achieved anything below 90% in his life. It was difficult. He had to work, and he had to make sure that he got back up to speed as quickly as possible. Okay, he did, and that's why I ended up coming first in the world. But even somebody like that had to work very, very hard to make sure he got there. Okay, it is different. The way the questions are asked is different. The way it is taught is different to what we're used to. This is why it's a lot easier for somebody who's done their GCSEs to slot into grade 10, or to slot into AS, because they've been in the system. But for grade 10 students swapping across into Cambridge, there is certainly a change in the teaching style. I'm not saying it's impossible. We have students doing it every year, but it takes work and it takes dedication. Okay, the students should not join Cambridge because their friends are, because of a teacher, or because they think it'll be a fewer subjects and therefore easier. I've mentioned the exam anxiety. I'm not going to go through that again. And any doubt, if any student is thinking, gee, should I do this, should I not do this, then you should lean towards not doing it. Okay, you've got to know why you want to do the Cambridge program. Okay, all right. And the reason why I say that is because once you're in it, there's no going back. Okay, once you've started the Cambridge program and you've been in it for a month or so, there is no going back to the IEB. Then once you made that choice, you've got to stick with it, and that is it. Okay, you've got to make it work from that point on. I have had students swap back to the IEB within the first week. That's doable. But remember that a student doing Cambridge, you are doing completely different work. The curriculum is different. You may argue that, yes, they're doing English, they're doing maths, but what they're doing is different to what we do in the IEB. Okay, so any student swapping back to the IEB after an extended period of time is going to find it difficult to catch up the work that they've missed, and they may need to pick up entire new subjects. For example, they'll have to pick up ALO, but that if they're only doing 4 subjects at AS, and now they've got to go to 6 subjects in Cambridge, in IEB, they may find that they're having to pick up subjects. Okay, so please know, once you start the Cambridge program, you're pretty much there. Okay. Right, then talking about the costs, the debentures are not accepted in the Cambridge program. Okay, we don't accept debentures. All right, so you have the choice. If you are currently on debentures in grade 10, you have the choice of transferring those to another child, a younger child, or you can donate them to the school, or you can sell them to another family, but we do not accept them in the Cambridge program. The current Cambridge fee is under 58,000 Rand for the year. Notice it is higher than the IEB, and the reason for that is that we pay everything in pounds. And currently our exchange rate is not helping us in that regard. That tuition fee includes all examination costs, except for rewrites and remarks. It also includes all practical costs, which are substantial because especially for students who are doing physics, chemistry, biology, there are a number of practical costs there. Boarding is not included, and textbooks and stationery are not included in that price. Okay, the new price for 2024 has not been determined yet for any of our fees across IEB or Cambridge, and that information will only be coming out a little bit later in the year. So that's why I'm giving you this year's tuition fee, so you can have a look. The IEB tuition fee was 141,000 Rand, so you can see it's 17,000 Rand more than IEB. Okay. Right, so where to now? So if you're a local student, if you're still interested in following the Cambridge curriculum, okay, but you require more information, I like to speak with every family. So that means the student and the parents, to make sure we go through and we're all on the same page, and we choose subjects which are going to get the student to where they want to go to. Right, I have sent out a letter to our grade 10 students to take advantage of the option of writing the GCSE Afrikaans exam in October. So please do reply to that. If you write the Afrikaans exam, you can still choose not to follow the Cambridge program, but that Afrikaans exam does not replace anything in the IEB. Okay, right, so if you write the Afrikaans, that is not replacing an IEB Afrikaans. Right, so students currently doing grade 10 or looking to Cambridge, you need to work on achieving your best possible results. And then what you should be aiming for is at least 70% in mathematics in grade 10, at least 70% in physical science, especially if you're going to carry on with physics and chemistry. Okay. We could say you should be doing well in English as well. And then if you are doing further studies maths, that's a good thing. It's certainly recommended. If you're not doing further studies maths, which is the old APM, then you may, you have, and you still choose to do the Cambridge program, you can do it without having done further studies maths. It's just recommended, but you just need to be prepared to work a little bit harder, because in FSM, they would have done more of the stats, which is in line with what you do in AS stats, which is part of the maths course, and you would not have done that. So you would need to be prepared to work a little bit harder. Right. For international students, if you're busy with your GCSEs, I know the GCSE exams are coming to an end as we speak, the May, June exams, then please do speak to our admissions department. I will also want to meet international students, but we can meet online. If you're not in the country, that's perfectly acceptable. And we'll take you through all of that. And then the GCSE results are coming out, if I'm not mistaken, around about the 9th or 10th of August. We will need a copy of your IGCSE results or similar. And I say or similar, I know there are different examining bodies around the world, so you may not be doing your GCSE. If I've got students in Mauritius, for example, they've done a French system, sometimes it's slightly different, and I understand that. Right. It says there, remember your why. The reason why I have this big sign that says remember your why is because that is what I ask all Cambridge AS students to do. Okay, at the end of the first term is generally when people start to get a little bit nervous, and then they realize what they've done and the choices that they've made. And what I try and get every student to do at the start of the AS year is to write a big poster, stick it up on their wall, and stating why they have chosen the Cambridge program, what their goals are. And then what we do is we try and get them to remember why they're doing this. Because when the pressure's on, that reason for doing the Cambridge program needs to be good enough to pull you through. Okay, and it's not just a case of all work and no play. That's not what I'm saying. Doing the Cambridge program does not mean that you're just going to be stuck with your books all the time. That means that you need to be responsible. Okay, students need to be engaged. They need to have good time management. If they are responsible and they work around and they manage their time effectively, you can still play your sport. You can still get involved in a number of things around the school. Okay, but you've got to make sure that you manage your time correctly. Andre, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Gareth. I just want to ask a question. So this is all great, but why would you want to choose this? Is there a much greater list of universities that you can get access to, or what would be some of the main reasons why you choose this route?
Okay, so the students in the past have chosen this route is because they are looking to go to international universities. Look, having done Cambridge certainly makes it easier to get into certain universities. So for example, if you want to go to Edinburgh, Edinburgh accepts IAB without a problem. I've had students go to Edinburgh without a problem with IAB results, and plenty of other, I'm just thinking of Edinburgh off the top of my head. But if you're looking to go to something like Cambridge or Oxford or Imperial or London School of Economics, places like that, generally doing Cambridge is a bonus. If you're looking to go to an American university, many of the American universities regard A-levels as being very good and give students credit. So I've had students who have got 6 months or even a year's credit in certain subjects based on their A-level results. The general reason why students follow the Cambridge program is because we have smaller classes in Cambridge, and it's I don't want to say more intimate, but it's certainly the atmosphere in a Cambridge class is different in that it is more collaborative. So you tend to discuss things, you have discussions a little bit more. It's not simply just the teacher standing up front and telling you what's going on. Okay, because you would go deeper into the subject matter. Many students find that more interesting. The students who choose Cambridge are ones who generally know exactly where they want to go. So they know that I need to do these subjects, because what Cambridge does is it allows you to focus on certain subjects in A-level. So there are students who prefer that. And so for some students, the Cambridge program just really works. They are responsible. They have everything in place, and they can do really well at it. Okay, so that's why students tend to choose the Cambridge program, because because of those reasons, because they want to go overseas and they want to make sure that they have an international qualification, or they want the option, let's put it that way, or because they are a little more focused and they're looking for the smaller group dynamic and the way in which Cambridge is taught. Okay, so I know a lot of the grade 10s are speaking to the Cambridge students and finding out all this information. So they will be finding out why and what's happening there at the same time. Okay, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Camilla, you've got your hand up.
I sure do. Thanks, Gareth. So I wanted to get a sense, there's definitely a sense that the A-level students are quite sort of separate from the rest of the school. And I wanted to know if that is actually is true. How involved can they, I suppose it's a choice of their own, but, leadership positions, taking part in societies, all of that kind of stuff, because that's obviously a huge part of being at school.
Yeah, so A-level students have got all the same, well, all my Cambridge students have got the same opportunities that any other student would have in terms of leadership positions. And we've had, a couple of years ago, we had both the head boy and head girl were Cambridge students. And some of them have been prefects having only started here in January of the AS years. In other words, they've been external students. I've had a boy who come from the UK who at the end of his AS year was chosen as deputy head boy. So they have the same opportunities. It's up to those students to take advantage of those opportunities. Having said that, we do try and keep the AS, the Cambridge students and the IB students as integrated as possible. So we have tutor groups, we have integrated tutor groups, for example. So within one tutor group, you'll have Cambridge and IB students. We keep the lesson times the same, the break times are the same. So Cambridge students and IB students still get together. What does happen in the second year, in the A-level year, because of the workload and the study groups and things like that, which the A-level students start putting together, there is a slight split between what happens in A-level and the grade 12 IB students. There is definitely a split there. We do try and keep them together as much as possible, but because of the nature of the workload and the way they're working, it does form a split for some students, but not all students. Yeah, so there is a split, to be honest. We do try and keep them together. In the AS year, there's certainly there's a lot more. In the A-level year, the grade 11 camp that happens, for example, they all go on camp together, the grade 11 AS and IB students. And the grade 12 dance is both IB and Cambridge. We don't have separate dances for them. So we do try and keep them as integrated as possible, but there is a split, and generally that's up to the students and the way in which they work and the study groups that they've formed.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, yeah. All right. Okay, well, that does bring us to the end. So if there's any other questions, please do feel free.